I'm Jen Wohlner. I'm based in LA. I've been at BuzzFeed for a year and a couple months. I'm a technical project manager at BuzzFeed. I work with Matt on our infrastructure group projects. And then I also work on with some other teams working on video related products, including a video mobile app and tools for that our video producers use.
Hi, I'm Matt Reiferson. I'm a Senior Director of Engineering for Infrastructure. Infrastructure at BuzzFeed includes a bunch of different groups like Jen was talking about. That's for all things from ops, data infrastructure, platform infrastructure, developer tools. I came on board BuzzFeed as part of an acquisition in late 2014, and I'm a transplant from New York.
Hi, my name is April Hilliard. I am the Director of West Coast Talent Acquisition, so that's LA and San Francisco right now. I started in April of last year, so not quite a year, like many of our employees out here in LA, pretty new. And yeah, that's it. I work on kind of anything and everything, all recruitment, staffing, selection related, and in partnership work with our HR partners.
All right, so diving right in, can you guys tell us what BuzzFeed is for those of the few in the audience that don't know? I bet a lot of us know BuzzFeed Motion Pictures. Pretty sure there's a lot more to BuzzFeed, so tell us a little bit about the pieces at where you guys work.
Okay, I can take it. Yeah, so BuzzFeed, it's based in New York. There's also a massive office in LA, and we have spaces throughout the world at this point. So BuzzFeed started as a website, but now we have a lot of distributed platforms where our content is. There's, of course, BuzzFeed.com. There's BuzzFeed iOS and Android apps. We make tons of videos that go on YouTube and Facebook and Snapchat and get syndicated out across the world. So BuzzFeed is video producers. They're people who write articles. There's a lot of tech workers and designers. There's salespeople. Yeah.
It's a modern global media company.
It is a modern global media company. You should check it out.
Awesome. And I mean, just watching some of the videos, it seems like so much is even recorded in your studios. So like, tell us a little bit about what the culture is like. We feel like we see it for 3 minutes in those viral videos, but you're there, you know, most of the day. What is it like?
Yeah, we sort of live and work amongst a lot of those actors and actresses that you're familiar with. We have offices in Hollywood and studio space within our offices, and basically all day long you might encounter a group filming, be in a video, be asked to be in a video, or see some really incredibly strange things that are also a lot of fun most of the time. While you're roaming around the office. I mean, culturally, I think that's definitely part of it. There's a lot of energy and creativity. There's a lot of different people working on very very different aspects of the production process, and being exposed to that is definitely one of the rewarding aspects of working here. It's not just a room full of engineers on their laptops with their headphones on all day long, and I certainly appreciate that energy, for inspiration and being able to learn about different aspects that I'm not usually exposed to.
Have any of you been in one of the videos and or seen anyone famous in the office? Sorry, just asking some questions I gotta get in.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like the first week I was here, one of the senior producers came over and asked to be in a video, and it was like you basically had to be naked, and I wasn't ready for that sort of commitment in my first week at the company. But yeah, Jen has been in a couple.
Yeah, I was in one talking about working in an industry that is typically dominated by the other gender. I work in tech, which is historically has been very male, and talking about those stereotypes where they come from and like how easy they are to break. So that was fun. You saw a famous person. Shaq.
Oh yeah, there's you'll encounter celebrities as you who are visiting, who are going to be in videos, who are being interviewed, for various capacities. Particularly in the New York and LA offices, that happens quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Talking about kind of inroads now, inroads to BuzzFeed for you. So you both come from, Matt and Jen, like pretty non-traditional ways that maybe students would think about getting into a company. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Jen, you studied sculpture. Matt?
Sure. You want to go first, Jen?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I went to undergrad out here in LA. I have a BFA when I studied sculpture and video art and some performance art. And I was always just like, playing around with front end stuff. And it was like, I was really went to school for art, but I had a lot of jobs in the like tech world and in digital marketing. And before this, I actually ran digital marketing at another company. And then I wanted to get, back into like more just like exclusively tech design product focus. And project management seemed like a great way to do that, specifically at BuzzFeed. Yeah, and actually a reason I picked BuzzFeed is you don't like have to stay in your lane is how I like to say it. Like I am a project manager, but I can participate in design reviews. I can come to the table with product ideas. I could leave comments on a engineering architecture plan. That's actually really nice about our culture. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'm one of those that sort of got started programming earlier in life. In my early teenage years, I was fortunate to have access to a computer at that time period. This is like the mid '90s, I guess, and just playing around with stuff, I fell in love. So it was more of I knew that I would do this even if I wasn't sort of earning money kind of thing. And then later I realized that it was something that could be obviously a lucrative profession. So I dropped out of school and I was working full time, at the end of sort of high school for me, and that was the late '90s. So I took advantage of that time period to sort of ride that early .com wave before it all came crashing down. I worked for a bunch of startups during that time period in and around sort of the New York area, and spent most of my professional career there during the 2000s in finance, startups, whatnot. And the startup that I was working at prior to BuzzFeed, we were working on some consumer-facing productivity apps. But the group of engineers that we had put together was had a great reputation from the work we had done on the infrastructure side at Bitly, the link shortening company. And BuzzFeed was looking to bring on a group of engineers that they wanted to build out their data infrastructure and their platform for internal processing and ingestion and curation of those data sets. And it just sort of fit. It was a good fit for us. It was a good opportunity to showcase some of those skills to a set of products that reach a much larger audience. And it made a lot of sense, both business and professional interest wise. So. We came on board, I moved out to LA, and the rest is history kind of thing.
All right, so I'm sure I know this is a really talented group of three that we have on our hands today. So similarly at Stanford, we have a lot of talented students. So with what I'm sure is a ton of opportunities when you guys think about where you want to work, you chose BuzzFeed for a reason. So what was the hook? Jen, you kind of mentioned you've learned that you don't have to stay in your own lane. But just curious, like when you had all the chips on the table still, what was the hook for you guys to come to BuzzFeed? And then now that you're there, what's one of your proudest accomplishments to date? So
yeah, like I said, a reason I joined, one of them was because I felt like when I interviewed, you didn't have to stay in your lane. But I think like I'm less than a decade into my career, and like for me, I was looking for a place where I could like really grow some like technical skills, like get them in my tool belt, but also like, I don't know, grow some leadership skills, things like that. And I felt BuzzFeed more than any place else I was interviewing really offered me that. And that was really important to me at the time I was interviewing and still is. And I think like one of my biggest accomplishments here is like we were both early people in the LA tech office. And over the past year, Matt and I have built like a really like solid group of engineers, designers, product people, and not just us. Like there have been other people involved in that, and like we've created we have a diverse group of people and a really good culture. And yeah, we're making good products. A lot of them related to video and infrastructure. But I think like building out the team we do it with that's been really exciting for me.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's about the people. You spend a lot of your life at work ultimately. And you want to make sure you're surrounding yourself by people who you share a mutual respect with, who inspire you, who motivate you, who challenge you to sort of do better and be better. So for me, it was about continuity of being able to work with the group of people that I had formed the startup with, and BuzzFeed offering us this sort of great opportunity to continue that road with lots of new, like larger scale challenges, both in the complexity of the systems, the complexity of the inner workings of the organization. So I had spent most of my career in much smaller companies, and had demonstrated success in those companies, but applying those sort of same approaches to an engineering team that's an order of magnitude larger is something was also interesting to me and the group of us at the time. And being able to do that for a brand and a set of products that is sort of beloved, that receives a lot of traffic, and is doing innovative things in their space, was kind of the combination of things that we were all hoping for.
Right. So, and now you all are there. So you all have your current seats. You love BuzzFeed. I bet some of these students are interested in joining you. So, in terms of university recruiting, what are you guys hiring for in terms of tech roles, non-tech roles, and hey, what are you hiring for today? And then maybe forecasting down the road so students can be ready maybe in a few months to apply too. Maybe this one's for April.
Sure, I can take that. So I'd say, this year is going to be a little bit different than last year, to be honest. We did some really high volume, heavy recruiting last year, added quite a lot of people globally. So, there are some entry-level positions available. I'd say they're mostly internships right now and or New York based. So I can talk a little bit about that. We have the office here in LA, and then we do have a San Francisco presence. It's pretty small, probably about 20-ish, maybe 30 people. Those offices are both looking for tech interns. That's a summer internship. So we have an ongoing annual summer internship that includes all levels of both undergrad, and I think we also sometimes hire masters, like MBA, etc. And then in LA specifically, we're pretty unique out here. We have a ongoing internship that's really more of a path to hire. And it is specific to creative roles. So, for example, every 3 months we hire a class of about 20, maybe to 30 interns. These are really makers, so these are writers and producers and people who want to make videos. They basically are thrown on as shoot support for 3 months, move to then a fellowship program for another 3 months, and then from there are very likely converted to junior producer roles. So again, that path is a little more non-traditional in terms of internship programs. We mostly look for people who are post-grad. Obviously, as I said, it's a little more creative, so these are people who maybe have made videos, have their own YouTube channel, have written. The summer internship program, as I said, does include technology, also other departments within the business. So if you're looking at, say, getting into like the ops team, maybe there's like a low-level kind of analyst role or sort of ops like associate type of position. Business strategy, client services, marketing. We really look for interns across the board. Those, to be honest, are less of a path to hire and more for kind of like the project-related experience.
Cool. And for that fellowship program, just curious, what are some of the paths that folks often, I guess, take after that fellowship program when they come on? It sounds like more full-time. What might they become? Any examples of those?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, post-fellowship, it's again pretty unique to the production, like video production space. So they're typically converted into junior producers. And to be honest, that's really how we've built up our kind of LA creative team. So it's been really successful. We really started with like a group of, say, 5 people, 6 people producing, to today over 300, I believe. It changes a little bit every day, so I didn't pull the numbers today. But we again, tremendous growth last year. That path was specific to production. What's interesting now is because we're becoming a larger company, you're starting to see more of the specialist roles. It's just something that's fairly standard in sort of like high growth or startup. So you may start with a lot of generalists, people kind of doing everything. Now we're at a size where you start to need support, right? So we may be hiring like editors out of that same program, potentially writers, so people who kind of are more focused than generalist producers. But in general, that fellowship program does feed into the creative path.
Got it. And so one of the questions we have, one of our crowdsourced questions from a current student at Stanford, what is it like to be a software engineer at BuzzFeed? What are the engineers currently working on? And what is the future of BuzzFeed? So wondering if one of you guys take that one.
Sure. What is it like to be a software engineer at BuzzFeed? I mean, there's such a diverse set of initiatives that we're working on that I think, depending on your interest and skill set, the answer to that question would be different. So I can speak to specifically the kinds of things that we work on within infrastructure, and then maybe sort of project that towards what the other groups and teams are working on. But within infrastructure, basically, our fundamental goal is to improve the engineering experience at BuzzFeed. And what I mean by that is that the suite of products that we own and we build and maintain become an effective multiplier for the rest of the engineering teams working on more user-facing products, right? So we're building the underlying infrastructure and platform where we provision computers and other resources in Amazon Web Services or things like that to shape and craft where you would deploy your internal-facing products, the backend for your mobile app, your APIs, your front-end applications, and trying to do that in a way where it makes those other teams' jobs easier and more reliable and repeatable and robust and resilient to all the different ways that things can break, and ensuring that we provide an environment where that's easy to do, self-service. At a large scale, in terms of number of people, a lot of times what happens is the processes that worked when you were a team of 25 or 40 or even 50 no longer apply when you're now into the 200s. So it's designing systems that allow people to continue to get their jobs done in a way that meets all the conventions and sort of standards we put in place. Go ahead.
I can speak a little bit to like what it's like, like that's specifically what the folks on the infrastructure group are building. I can speak a little bit too because I work with a couple with teams outside of that group. So the way BuzzFeed is organized is we're divided up into I think 6 groups that have like a large initiatives, like infrastructure, making the engineering experience better and easier. Other ones are focused on like users and feeds. But within those groups, we're divided into squads of like anywhere from like 6 to 15 people are huge ones. And those squads are full stack for whatever product they're making. So they'll have a product person, a designer, front-end engineers, maybe an Android engineer, and back-end engineers, and a project manager. Everyone on those groups, you have some groups have daily stand-ups, some have them a couple times a week. Everyone has planning meetings. And because you're in such small teams, let's say you're a group of 8, whether you are a designer or a front-end engineer or a back-end engineer or me, everyone participates in like the product roadmap. Everyone participates in our design critiques if they want to. It's very much just like there's accountability and focus because we're in these small groups. And I think it's a good place to learn and build something.
Yeah, I think the idea behind those small groups is to give them autonomy, right? So they have a set of goals from a high level, and obviously those goals are discussed, and it's a collaborative process with management and the direction of the company, right, to sort of make sure that we're prioritizing the right things. But with that set of goals, that team should have all of the staff that they need essentially to accomplish those goals. So Infra sort of provides technical resources for them to be able to get their job done. But then after that, it's kind of a process of ownership and then sort of iterative development towards reaching those milestones and achievement of those goals. And yeah, I mean, like, if you're interested in sort of low-level technical systems, then like infrastructure would be a good place for you. We have systems that handle, many thousands of requests per second. If you're into performance or management of large volumes of data, right? We ingest terabytes of data a day. We have more data than we know what to do with. But those are always interesting problems of technical scale. So we have those as well, and again, in sort of service of the same goals, making systems that make it easier to analyze that data or process it or build other systems that might benefit from access to those data streams, like recommendation algorithms or data science kind of efforts that improve the experience of our users, right? By giving them more relevant content or more timely content based on the things that they've looked at previously or whatnot.
Yeah, one rule I realized as you were explaining what infrastructure does, one rule that neither one of us has mentioned, as we spoke about tech and product at BuzzFeed, is we do have a team of data scientists and data analysts. So those aren't engineers, but that is another part of tech.
I mean, they're absolutely engineers too.
Sorry.
Yeah.
They are engineers, but they're like a different type of engineer. I don't know if they'd want to be called engineers. We'll see. We got real controversial here. Are data scientists engineers? I don't know.
Deep questions.
Deep questions.
Jen and Matt.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to answer that one, but they do engineering. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, they engineer.
Right. Well, you're hiring data scientists, it sounds like, too. You said you have a lot of data on your hands. I'm guessing you have a lot of applications on your hands, too. So for students that want to actually apply to BuzzFeed, what's the best way to get on your guys' radar? And then also, what's your recommendations on how they should prepare their application, resume, cover letter? Like what actually matters to you? So where to apply, and then how should they dress that thing up?
I could take that and kind of speak in generals, and then if you guys want to add a little bit on like tech-specific information and what you want to see on a resume. So yes, we have a lot of applications. We also take the time to review them all because we're in a really great position wherein we get a lot of incoming talent that maybe we don't necessarily know or aren't necessarily going after that we actually do hire. I think that's a pretty unique company perspective, and part of it is because we have such a strong consumer brand. Part of it is because we have a really great culture and people do want to be here and want to work here. So the answer to the question is, and this is really always my advice, is attack really on all fronts. I think that applying online, we do review, as I mentioned, so always apply online. Keep an eye on the career page. We do post pretty much everything. Of course, there may be some confidential searches and whatnot that wouldn't be up there, but we keep that up to date. I think getting in through a referral is really a great way to get in as well. We hire probably about 40% of our hires are referrals, so that's a really great way to get in. Also create, again, it kind of depends on the job you're going after, but you can very easily create a community profile on BuzzFeed.com and actually write and post. For video specific roles, we hire people who, like I said before, really enjoy making. So maybe they have a YouTube video, a Vine channel. I think it's really easy these days to just kind of create things and push them out. But yeah, I think try to get your name in front of the recruiting team in all ways. But not to fear if you don't know anyone here. And you just apply online, we do review, and we've hired quite a few people from direct applications.
Matt, Jen, is there anything specifically for when you all are reviewing like a resume, like, guys, just put this on there, please, this is what I'm really looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think speaking directly to this audience, which is an audience that naturally isn't going to have much professional experience, I think, having spent time and having done internships at companies working in sort of a professional software engineering context, I think is a really valuable experience to set you up for a sort of full-time career in this industry. I think the comp sci curriculum is getting better over time, but sometimes it can sort of stray towards the more academic kind of knowledge, which is super valuable in many different roles. But I think having the more practical experience of day-to-day software engineering, things like, how you're structuring your code and organizing it, or use or not of source control, or things like that. Just sort of the basic workflow-y type things that I think become super valuable. We're all most often focused on like candidates at sort of a junior level that are curious, and that curiosity can come across in many different ways. It could be things like having interacted with open source projects, having blogged about the kinds of problems and solutions you've encountered while you're digging through these new experiences that you're having in your classwork or outside of that. and taking advantage of sort of what the community exposes in terms of like April alluded to, places where you can post the kinds of things that you've done that are uniquely yours and not a direct result of being asked to have done them in class.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about what our interview process is like.
Sure.
So there's like a phone screens with HR, and then they typically talk to the hiring manager over phone, and then there's a code test.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, and I think the overarching goal here is that we don't want to be biased in terms of the interview process that we follow, and we want to balance that with asking questions that reflect actual experiences you'd have as a software engineer at the company, rather than puzzles or demonstrations of being clever. So all of our steps sort of reflect that approach. So our code test is a very practical sanity check of just having to solve a problem, but not having to do it in some special, extra clever way. And the kinds of things we're looking for there are, again, sort of attention to detail, right? Like, did you write tests? Did you package it in a way that it makes it really easy for us as a reviewer to take a look at it, right? Like, can I open the repository and run some commands or follow some document that you've created for me to be able to reproduce the results that the test asks for? So it's that sort of attention to detail and the context, that your ability to effectively communicate the ideas that you have in code. Those skills become far more useful in a sort of larger engineering context, because most often it's those communication and points of interaction that end up being hurdles in accomplishing our goals rather than purely technical ones. I think we do have a lot of technical talent here. I'm sure all of you are talented along very specific technical means, but that isn't always enough.
Yeah.
And being able to clearly communicate your ideas and do that both written and verbal, and share your opinions and be okay with expressing them and giving feedback and receiving it, I think most often become the most critical things early on that I think either allow you to move forward successfully or become a hindrance.
Yeah, so after the code test, hopefully that goes really well, and then we bring in candidates who do well in that and for in-person interviews. And they typically start with a technical interview with a couple engineers along the lines of the criteria Matt spoke about. And then they also interview with folks they'd work with on the squads like I was talking about. So they always interview with the project manager they'd be working with. If there's a product person or a designer, they'd interview with them. And when I interview, I trust that like Matt and team, the other engineers are going to ask technical questions to the candidate. I focus more on how you deal with working in a group, specifically like how you deal with failure, because inevitably you'll be working at BuzzFeed with us, and you're going to mess up. It's going to happen. I do it. Matt does it. And how you deal with those moments where stuff breaks down is really important to me. I look for candidates who are humble and smart and really excellent and kind. We don't interview at all for cultural fit. That's not a thing we look at. It's like, are you kind and smart and humble? And that's it. Like what you like to do as your hobbies, those are just like added bonuses. But yeah, that's kind of what we're looking for.
Right, and again, you're hearing the same sort of theme, is that sort of your ability to communicate is really critical. And about the technical part of that in-person interview process, same thing there. We're not going to ask you how to reverse a linked list on a whiteboard. That doesn't provide any value whatsoever for our ability to figure out whether or not you're the right candidate for the role. We typically have practical, collaborative exercises, if you will. They might be on the whiteboard. They will not ask you to write code on the whiteboard, but we may design a system together and slowly increase the complexity of that system and introduce additional requirements, both product and technical, that will allow us to have a conversation about the pros and cons of the trade-offs you're making, why you're making certain decisions, and sort of go through the exercise along those lines. And we found that gives us a more realistic view of what it would be like working with you, for example, rather than whether or not you have the ability to answer some CS question.
And so on that note of kind of working, And this is probably the last few questions here. I don't want to take too much more of your guys' time. For students thinking about this summer, like a summer internship, and they want to grow, what are they going to get out of this experience? What's an example or two of a project that an intern has worked on or might work on?
Yeah, so I think the intern process, the intern framework that we try to put together is one that will give you an accurate reflection of what it's like to do a lot of the things that we've been talking about. So you're going to work with a design and the product team. You're going to work within a project management framework that we've talked about and discussed that makes sense for everybody involved, and that'll give you that experience of actually working on a software engineering project at BuzzFeed, but also a sort of a larger engineering team. The types of projects sort of depend on sort of the timing of the things that we're working on. I think if you're on infrastructure, you're probably going to be working on things like something that we would decide together that is going to improve some component of our system that ideally we can deploy to production by the end of your internship. So the goal would be to ship something, have some blog post that's worthy of that has some learning or some takeaways in terms of experience you've had.
Yeah, last summer, we had he was actually a fellow, not an intern, but this is typical of a project you would work on. We have an internal dashboard that producers look at to view how their videos are performing across a variety of platforms. As of right now, we don't have like a BuzzFeed video player. So our videos are all on YouTube and Facebook and MSN and Yahoo. And so we have a centralized place to view all that, and it's really desktop specific. So he worked on like a TV version of that, like a nice slideshow, so folks walking around the office could see how BuzzFeed Motion Pictures overall was doing, if their video was in a top 5, stuff like that. So he was more of a front-end engineer, and that made sense for him.
Yeah, it reflects sort of the kinds of technical experience the intern is looking to achieve, and depending on that, we will come up with some sort of product together.
Tell us a little bit about, if you could speak to this, like, it was interesting to hear you talk through kind of the metrics or just some of the under the hood of how you assess a video. Like, tell us a little bit about the process of like how a video even comes about, like from the idea to it's produced. I think you said there's like a costume garage that you all had to like get into normal clothes for this, right? To when it's done, like whether it goes viral or not, like what did you guys season into the recipe to make that happen? Just a little under the hood on videos at BuzzFeed.
Cool, yeah, so we're in a space in Hollywood, I think Matt mentioned. It's BuzzFeed LA has like 5 offices, or some of them are campuses like ours. Ours has like 4 or 5 buildings, bunch of sound stages, a costume garage full of costumes, including, and also like props like piñatas and like so many wigs. So people, sometimes they have brainstorming sessions all the time, the producers. Sometimes they're going off other posts that were really successful. Like if there was a post on BuzzFeed about like 10 short girl problems, like, and it did really well, they might make a video about all the short girl problems, and like I'll relate to that. But like, so, and sometimes they come off from and they're a brand new idea. Producers make videos in all ways. Sometimes they write them, they direct them, they star in each other's, they edit each other's. And then there's like a post-production team that helps make specific cuts of videos for different platforms. You know, like on YouTube, you see those little links at the end of the video that are like, click here for another video like this. They don't have those on Facebook, so there's a team that edits those out. And then videos, yeah, get syndicated out to other platforms we don't own, like Yahoo, like Huffington Post. Yeah, so our videos live so many places on the internet.
Yeah, we call it like a data-informed creative approach.
Yeah.
Like we're collecting a lot of data. We obviously communicate with those third-party platforms, collect data via their APIs, present that data with internal dashboards, use that for metrics and analysis. But we like to say that you have to respect the human element of creativity that got us to where we are. So the data is another heuristic that we use to inform the creative decisions that we're already making and have been making that have gotten us to where we are and help us achieve the success that we've had. Because sometimes those ideas just come from just typical interactions in office, right? Like, you never know where the source of an idea may come from, and it's not, you don't want to be sort of controlled by the data and ruled by it, that if it did not indicate that something might be useful to pursue, that we wouldn't pursue it simply because somebody, we didn't have the data to justify it. I think it's trying to find that balance between using the data to maybe verify the results that we're seeing, and have that feedback into the beginning of the cycle where it may inform the things that we're doing, but also embrace the fact that we have a fantastic group of creative people who can do this, sort of naturally.
So maybe this is more of a secret sauce question, so I'm hoping you guys can answer it. So for our students that are like, hey, like, I'm just curious about how to make a viral video. I'm sure you guys have broken down like what goes into that, a lot of data into that process. Like, can you tell us how to do it?
I mean, if there was an answer to that question, then we've certainly stumbled upon maybe some formulas that might help, but there's so much work that goes onto it behind the scenes to help support that endeavor. I mean, I think it's a largely human process.
And sometimes virality kind of surprises us. Like, historically, we always thought of virality as like, typically it's an explosion in the first 7 days of a video being produced, published. But we found with like stuff that is episodic, like series, that has a longer window. It's like in the first 30 days that stuff can go viral because people tend to like binge watch a whole series as opposed to just episode by episode. So
you have to have a culture that's willing to reevaluate previous assumptions. So initially, if we're focusing on a specific metric as a means of measuring our success, those things change over time. They change based on how many videos you might have on a platform and those network effects that you're achieving over time. So it's hard. Like, you just have to constantly evolve your process as you're affecting the environment that you're publishing to.
Yeah.
So I think the things that we care about change over time, and that's reflected in the suite of tools that we have to build to provide that support for the team. We can't have long-term product cycles because something that we've designed 6 months ago, if we haven't shipped it yet, it may not even reflect our current thinking in terms of what we need or value.
Yeah.
Won't share the secret sauce. Got it. Okay. So last two questions. One, I think you mentioned there was like a community channel. I'm trying to think for our students if they want to kind of start making baby steps toward building their own profile or footprint in, say, the more creative way. It sounds like you have some outlets for them to start. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, you can set up a community profile within the community site. I think it's BuzzFeed.com/community. And that's just something you can post to, create articles, lists, whatever you want to do, really. The other things I mentioned just in terms of making, and actually Matt was talking about this from a tech perspective too, is just like whatever you like to do, just do. I think people want to see practical experience, and if you can't get that practical experience, then pursuing it through whether it's an internship or just project work or something you're kind of creating and doing as a hobby, like all of that is really good to see and really interesting and sort of shows passion. So that could be writing or creating videos, even like everyone has iPhones these days and the cameras are really great. I think we have actually even shot videos here on iPhones. So just make things and put them out there.
All right, and to close it down, and this one's for all three of you. What advice do you have for students that want to be in your shoes one day? I think these students still have plenty of time to kind of pivot into new experiences that they should be considering. So looking back on your own track, like what's some advice you have?
Okay, so I am not one to have like a 5-year plan or anything like that. I think I'm curious about learning, and I think that's kind of got me where I am. Like I'm not lazy, and I like to learn a lot, and I try and say yes to experiences where I can grow, so that are a little outside of what I know already, experiences that I can grow into, and I think that's totally gotten me where I am today, and working in other areas of my life. So it's been working for me. It could work for you. Yeah.
I think the key is to find, again, it's about the people, finding a group of people who will inspire and challenge you, and who will be in positions where they can mentor you and support you in sort of your levels of growth, and continue to challenge yourself. Like, you will know when it's time to move on, when you don't feel like you're making any additional progress in a certain area. Pursue things that you're afraid of or that you find you don't have a ton of experience in. So if you've mostly done, like, early on in your career, you're going to want to basically experience everything in terms of engineering and technology, right? Front end, back end, data science. Participate in all aspects of that process to give you actual experience in those areas to help you shape where you might want to specialize in down the road. But be a generalist at first, and then continue to challenge yourself and find opportunities that will be challenging for you, where you're around a group of people who inspire you and support you and respect you.
Yeah, and I'd say, like, one other thing is, like, pick a job where diversity is important. And it's all types of diversity. People's interest, race, sexuality, all of it, age, whether people are parents or not. Those different experiences, those different minds together help create, like, a good environment to learn, and a lot of different ways of learning. You'll find a different one that works for you. Yeah.
It's not about the engineering in the end of the day. That's really, I guess, the message.
Yeah.
That stuff you can learn. It's the other stuff that I think is far more important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to ditto that, but ditto to all that. I would be experience focused and growth focused. Your network is incredibly important. Looking back, I think I wanted to make, like, a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. And what's funny is actually a lot of HR people, not so much anymore, but they tend to want to ask those questions, right? Like, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I actually don't like that question at all. And I've now changed from when I was younger to now not having a 5-year plan. I think it's actually a good approach, because things can come from anywhere, and there are unexpected opportunities that you can't plan for. So if you know what drives you and kind of what you're curious about, and if you push learning and kind of focus on overall growth, both professionally and personally, versus getting stuck in details, I think that tends to be something you can do when you're younger too, or professionally more junior. What's this title? How much money am I making? Those things matter, obviously, in kind of the bigger picture, but I think looking towards the actual opportunities, the growth, the experiences, that's much more important at the end of the day.
All right, so I want to thank you three for taking about 45 minutes out of your day to talk to our Stanford students. I know they got a lot out of it. I'm sure some will be applying tonight, and this video will go on for a while, so even months down the road. So thanks again for your time, and we'll see you next time.